In her book, Race, Empire, and English Language Teaching, Motha describes the concept of liminal spaces, which to her are in-between places or metaphorical spaces that exist between the colonial and the colonized. She then goes on to explain that Baba understands liminal spaces as transitory sites in which people do not fit the binary, but rather identify with both categories. There are two ways I understand this definition based on the examples given in the book. The first example of a liminal space given by Motha was the hallway that exists between Alexandra's ESOL classroom and the rest of the school. Based on this example, I see liminal spaces as empty buffer zones that exist between two groups, such as the train tracks that separated good and bad neighborhoods in American cities. No one exists in this space for an extended period of time. However, people pass through them to transition between the two groups. But when I read Baba's interpretation of the liminal spaces as sites in which individuals are permitted to be neither wholly with one category nor with the other, I thought of them more as a continuum of spaces that exist between two groups. I think this interpretation is demonstrated through ESL classes and their levels. For example, a beginner student may be closer to the minority culture, but still in this continuum, and an advanced student may be closer to the dominant culture, but still within this liminal space. I believe that Motha discusses this concept in relation to English language teaching as the site of empire, because the students exist in this liminal space. They're not fully part of the dominant culture, as they have not yet learned the language and they have not yet assimilated. However, they are moving away from their minority culture because they are learning a different language and through that learning different cultural values and norms. I would like to clarify that I do not believe that assimilation is necessary to participate in a different culture. However, I do believe that for a lot of people, this is a standard that they hold non-native speakers to. Being in between two cultures can create what Jackson refers to as a contested identity, or an identity in which the ascribed and avowed identities of a learner do not match. For example, a student studying English may identify as bilingual. However, a stranger who sees them may believe that they do not speak English and therefore ascribe a monolingual non-native identity to them. This may cause confusion for the learner and therefore create a contested identity. The current educational climate actually promotes liminal spaces because it separates English language learners from the rest of the students. Many learners are put in a separate, often inferior classroom, such as Alexandra's, or given different work to work on during class that separates students from the overall discussion going on. This isolates learners and creates a psychological and often physical liminal space between the learners and their peers. This separation makes learners vulnerable to discrimination, which Jackson refers to as unequal treatment of certain individuals based on their membership in a certain group. In this case, the students are being perceived as non-native English speakers and therefore discriminated against by other students through taunting and bullying, and by the school itself through fewer academic opportunities. One example of this in the Motha book was when the ESOL teacher was not informed of a multicultural event, and therefore the ESOL students were not able to participate in this event. This discrimination can then affect what Norton refers to as their investment, or the student's combination of the sociocultural context, the history, and their motivation to learn. Even if students are highly motivated to learn English, they may not do well in the class because of the negative consequences, such as discrimination, that come from being in the ESOL classroom.